Most people learn outbound backward. We start with cold email copy, LinkedIn messages, tools, or automation. But before you send a single message, there are probably 8 or 9 decisions that determine whether the message has any chance of working or not. So in this video, I want to show you the complete B2B outbound process, starting from the ICP and ending with a booked meeting. Because once you understand the whole system, learning individual outbound tactics becomes much easier. The first thing I want you to understand is that outbound isn't one activity; it's a system. A weak campaign could fail because you're targeting at the wrong market or the right company, but the wrong people, or good prospect at the wrong time, or maybe your targeting is fine but your offer isn't strong enough, or maybe all of that is correct and your messaging is the actual. That's why simple rewriting a cold email every time replies are low usually isn't a very good diagnosis. You need to understand the entire chain. So let's go through it. Step 1, start with the market. Before thinking about job titles or email copy, decide which market you are going after. Let's say you sell a service that help B2B companies generate more sales meetings. You could technically sell this to hundred of different type of businesses, SaaS companies, recruitment firms, marketing agencies, IT service companies, consultancies, logistic companies as well, and many others. But those markets aren't equal. Some may have a stronger need, some may already spend money solving the problem, some may be easier to reach, some may have shorter sales cycles. So the first decision is, where do we actually want to compete? For a new outbound campaign, I would normally prefer starting relatively narrow. Instead of saying we target B2B companies, you might start with US based B2B SaaS companies with 20 to 200 employees. Now you have a reduced huge universe into something you can actually test. You are not saying that's the permanent market. You are creating a hypothesis. That's an important distinction. Outbound is partly a testing system. You are making the assumption about who has the problem, who cares about solving it, and who might buy. Then you collect data. Step 2, define the ICP. Once the market is selected, we move into the ICP. The ICP is the type of company that is most likely to be good fit for what you are selling. For example, your ICP might include industry, company size, locations, business model, technology used in the company, revenue range, or team size, growth stage, maybe a funding status, or some specific operational condition as well. Let's say you are selling recruiting software. Your ICP could be technology companies in the US, 100 to 500 employees, currently hiring at least 10 people. With an internal recruiting team, notice what we have done. We are getting closer to the actual problem. A random 300% technology company might technically fit your demographic ICP, but if they are not hiring anyone, the problem you are solving may not matter right now. This becomes important later when we talk about the signals. Step 3, identify the buyer. Now we have the right type of company, but companies don't respond to outbound. People do. So the next question is, who inside that company actually cares about this problem? One common mistake is choosing job titles too early. Someone says we sell sales software, so let's target VP of sales. Maybe that's correct, but you should understand why. I normally think about the problem first. What problem does the product solves? Which department owns that problem? Who experience it regularly? Who has the enough authority to act on it? And how does the answer change depending on the company size? Let's take recruiting software again. At a 40% startup, the founder of or head of people might own the decision. At 500% company, you might have a VP of talent acquisition, recruiting managers, procurement, and other people involved in it. The buyer changes because the organization changes. So don't simply build a list of 10 executive titles and contact everyone. Understand the buying role first. You can think about three simple categories: the user, the champion, and the decision maker. Sometimes that's one person, and sometimes it's three different people. Now, step 4, build the prospect universe. Now we know that company, we want the people inside those companies as well. This is the where prospecting starts. You might use LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, or Apollo, or maybe Clay, or company database, Google maybe, and many other tools. Or you can find job boards, funding data, or your own internal database as well. But here's the important part. The goal shouldn't simply be finding as many leads as possible. The goal is to create the right prospect universe. Let's say there are 2000 companies that matches your ICP, basic ICP. And inside those companies there are 5000 potential buyers. That doesn't mean you should contact all 5000 right now. This brings us to what I think is becoming one of the most important part of modern outbound is prioritization. Step 5, decide who is worth contacting now. ICP Fit tells you could this company potentially buy, but doesn't necessarily tells you should I contact them today or not. Imagine two companies, both are 200% SaaS companies, both fit your ICP. Company A isn't hiring, revenue appears flat, nothing interesting has changed recently. Company B just raised funding is hiring 5 salespeople and recently appointed a new VP of sales. Which one would you contact first? Probably company B, right? That's where buying signal or timing signals become useful. Some example could include hiring, funding, or new leadership, maybe technology changes, expansion into new market, a rapid headcount growth, new product launches, a relevant LinkedIn post as well, or a company opening a new office, or some other event connected to the problem you're trying to solve. You can combine this into a simple scoring model. For example, company fit, buyer fit, buying signals, and data confidence. The exact weighing will be depend on what you are selling, but the principle matters. If you have 1000 prospect and can realistically contact only 150 this month, outbound becomes a prioritization problem, not a database problem. Step 6, define the offer. Now we finally start getting closer to messaging. But before writing the message, you need to know what you are actually offering. And this is where a lot of campaign become weak. People confuse the product with the offer. Let's say you run a lead generation agency. Your service might be cold email and LinkedIn outreach, but your prospect doesn't wake up wanting email and LinkedIn outreach. Right? They may want more qualified sales conversation this week, a predictable way to generate pipeline, a way to enter the US market, or a way to generate meeting without hiring another SDR. So your offer needs to connect what you do to the result they care about. And ideally, it should reduce the perceived risk of taking the next step. You don't necessarily need some crazy guarantee, but you do need a clear reason for them to care. Step 7, build the message. Now we can write the outreach. Notice how late messaging appears in the process. That's very intentional. By this point, you should already know who you are targeting, why they are a fit, what problem they probably care about, and why now might be relevant, and what you are offering as well. That makes writing messages much easier. A simple cold message often need only a few things: why you are contacting them, why it might be relevant, what you help with, and a reasonable next step. For example, instead of just writing, "Hi John, we are leading provider of innovation recruitment solution, helping companies optimize their talent acquisition process." You could say something closer to, "John, notice your team is hiring across several engineering roles. We help growing software companies reduce some of the manual work around candidate sourcing and outreach as well. Curious if improving recruiting capacity is something your team is looking at this quarter." That's not necessarily the perfect message, but the logic is much better. There's context, there's relevance, and there's a clear connection to likely a problem. Personalization should support relevance. It shouldn't exist just to prove you research someone. Now, step 8. Choose the channel and sequence. Next comes channel strategy. Should you use LinkedIn, cold email, or both? The answer depends on the market, buyer, data availability, deal value, and sometimes geography as well. For some campaign, email may be enough. For others, LinkedIn can help create familiarity. For high value accounts, using both may make sense. I also wouldn't think of a sequence as sending the same messages 5 times. Each touch should have a reason to exist. Maybe the first message introduce the problem. The second give more context. The third approaches the problem with a different angle. The fourth give a simple example. You don't need a huge sequence, but You do need enough attempt to properly test whether your message works or not. One unanswered message doesn't tell you very much. Step 9. Execute properly. This is the boring part of outbound, but it's where the lot of campaign quietly break. The list could be good, the buyer could be correct, the message could be perfect, but execution can still destroy the campaign. Bad email data, duplicate contacts, broken personalization variables, messages sending outside reasonable hours, too much activity from one LinkedIn account, email deliverability problems, incorrect campaign status, people receiving messages after replying, poor follow up logic. This is where automation helps, but you want to separate automation from judgment. AI can help classify prospect, understand websites, core companies, or generate contextual information. Automation can move data, schedule action, update CRM, or trigger workflow. And humans should still control important strategic decision and edge cases. You don't automate chaos. You first define the process, then automate the stable parts. Now, step 10, measure the right thing. Now the campaign is running. The final part of the system is feedback. This is where outbound becomes an optimization loop. Don't look at meetings booked. Meetings are obviously important, but earlier metrics help you diagnose the problem. For cold email, you might look at things like delivery, replies, positive replies, meetings, how many meetings have booked. For LinkedIn, connection request, send, acceptance rate, replies, positive conversations, meetings, but the metrics only become useful when you connect them back to the system. For example, if nobody accepts your LinkedIn request, maybe there's a targeting or profile problem. If people accept but don't reply, maybe the message isn't relevant. If you are getting positive reply but no meeting, maybe your CT or qualification process needs work. If you are booking meetings but they are consistently bad fit opportunity, you may have a ICP or buyer problem. That's why measurement should lead to diagnosis, not random changes. The full system. So if I were building an outbound campaign from zero, this is the order I would think through. First, choose the market, then define the ICP, understand the problem, identify the buyer, build the prospect universe, prioritize the best prospects, look for the timing or buying signals, define the offer, create the messaging, choose your channels, and build the sequence, execute reliably, then measure what happens and use the data to improve the next campaign. That's the complete system. And something important happens when you start looking at outbound this way. You stop asking what the best cold email template, and you start asking much better questions. Are we targeting the right market? Is this actually our best ICP? Are we talking to the person who owns the problem? Is this prospect worth contacting right now? Does our offer make sense or not? Is the problem strong enough? Is the message relevant or not? Is execution working correctly or not? What does the campaign data tell us? Those questions are much more useful because outbound performance usually doesn't come from one clever tactic. It comes from getting enough part of the system right at the same time. And if you're learning outbound, don't try to master all of this in one day. Understand this map first. Then you can go deeper into ICP development, buyer selection, prospecting, scoring, buyer signal, LinkedIn messaging, cold email, optimization one by one. But now you will understand where each part fits. And that's the foundation I will build before learning individual tactics. Thank you.